Did you just trade my future for a pet rock?
All Minions: The Rise of Gru deleted scenes. Minions: The Rise of Gru just might be the best movie in the Despicable Me franchise, but then there are some scenes that just didn't make it to the final cut, even if these scenes could have made the movie even better than it was. From an Avengers reference to Dracula Gru, here are the best scenes that never made the cut.
Oh, yes, the stunt. Here's the thing about that. Kind of a funny story.
Give it to him!
Avengers Assemble. The Despicable Me franchise is without a doubt a goldmine of hidden information and details, especially when it comes to references to other movies or franchises. And in Minions: The Rise of Gru, many fans and viewers were super disappointed when a very exciting scene that we saw in the trailer failed to make it into the final cut. In the official trailer that was released a few months before the movie, we saw the final fight scene between Gru, aka Mini-Boss, the Minions, and the Vivius 6 after the villains used the Zodiac Stone to gain superpowers. Of course, we all know about how the Minions and Gru were being defeated by the villains, but it turns out that there's one super cool scene that didn't make the final cut. In the trailer, Gru is captured and tied up by the villains, while the Minions are trying to fight the villains off. Gru then yells out, "Minions assemble!" And this gives the Minions the courage and strength to fight back at the villains. While this might seem like another random scene, it is actually very interesting, because fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will recognize the phrase, because Captain America often yells out, "Avengers assemble!" whenever he needs to gather the Avengers together. So this is a cool nod to Captain America and the Avengers, but for some reason the scene didn't make it into the movie, which is a shame because it would have made the scene even better.
I feel like I'm talking too loud even though our proximity doesn't require...
Dracula Gru. Gru looks perfect the way he is. I don't think anyone would have wanted him to look any different. Our beloved villain, with his long legs and nose, I don't think I would have pictured him any differently. But in the original pitch for Gru, the animator, Sergio Pablos, envisioned him as a gothic and looking like Dracula, with these big, hulking ogre-like henchmen. They didn't even envision him with all his crazy technological gadgets. I think the idea for the movie wanted him to be set in time before technological advancement, but as development went on, the ideas kept changing and changing till we were left with the image of Gru as we know it today. It would have definitely been an interesting thing to see Gru look like Dracula, and maybe fans would have loved it. But if you think about it, that would be a totally unoriginal concept. The fun thing about Gru is how modern it feels with all the technological gadgets he owned and his constant battles with other villains with their own crazy tech gadgets. If it was done otherwise, the Dracula Gru would have had its fans, but I'm pretty sure it would have been boring. Because if it was not, then the idea would definitely not have been rejected.
Police! La polenta! La stona! Otto! Atonde la stona!
Alternate ending. Not everyone is a fan of the bad guys going free, and even though the original vision of the creators of Rise of Gru was for Wild Knuckles and Gru to ride off into the sunset after faking his death, to return in future installments, the government of China was not having it. The government of China cannot be said to have a chill approach to the media. While a couple of things are allowed in many countries in the world, the Chinese government always puts its foot down and rejects them. And they didn't let the Rise of Gru escape their strict censorship. In a version released in China, they deleted the original ending and added their own ending. In a text title card that appears at the end of the movie, the Chinese audience got to know that Wild Knuckles was in jail and that Gru was a great father to 3 lovely kids and no longer does bad things anymore. Even though this is a stretch, as Gru didn't adopt the 3 girls until years later when he was an adult, viewers definitely questioned what happened between the period Wild Knuckles was jailed and Gru growing up to become a father. This is definitely interesting because it ignores the entire premise of the movie. The Chinese government believed the original ending was fostering the message that villains can escape getting punished, and this was something the Chinese government didn't want their citizens to think. In what world did movie endings affect how people acted? That seems like an extreme thing to do.
Me? I want to be a supervillain.
Gru at school. Despicable Me 2 gave us a short look at little Gru when he was still in school. Even though that scene ended up getting cut out, fans expected to see it in this story that looks into the history of Gru, but we didn't see that. From the beginning of The Rise of Gru, all we see is little Gru hell-bent on being a supervillain. In the deleted scene, little Gru was bullied by his classmates for having a crush on one of the girls in his school and wanting to do something nice for her. He was about to offer the girl a flower before his classmates began mocking and laughing at him, which definitely hurt Gru's feelings. I'm sure we all know how mean schoolboys can get sometimes, and we could not help feeling sorry for little Gru. No one should have to get bullied for liking another person. This scene probably didn't fit into the story the producers wanted to tell. It was far removed from Gru's story, and from the looks of it, they wanted to focus on Gru's villainy and not his soft side. Even though I think this would have added an interesting layer to Gru and make us love him more. But I'm not the producer or director, and maybe they have other plans for Gru that we are not aware of.
Fuera! Hey!
Mirror Minion. The minions are known for how terribly dumb they are, from killing their leader to destroying cities. The minions are known for their stupidity and recklessness. In one of the deleted minion scenes, we see one of the minions enjoying himself while gazing at his reflection in a room full of mirrors. He kept pulling faces, and at one point, he danced while pressing his yellow butt toward the mirror. At a point, this must have become disorienting as he fails to recognize that another minion is in front of him and continues to believe the second minion in his reflection. In an attempt to be mischievous, the other minion pounces and frightens the very daylights out of him. This sequence would have been a humorous addition, thus the only factor that could have prevented it from being included was run length.
I didn't mean to scare you. Don't worry. We're not mad at him. We just want to hire him.
Medieval Leader. This deleted scene is not from the Rise of Gru movie, but the early Minion movie. In an early trailer of the movie, which aired only in France, there was a scene with a medieval leader that was not featured in the final cut. Judging from the way the leader was dressed, he must have been a dark, ageist knight. In the deleted scene, the minions, as the dutiful slaves that they were busy washing the floor of a medieval balcony when the knight comes out of nowhere. It seemed as if he was practicing fighting with a sword, but somehow he steps on the not-so-dried and soapy floor and falls flat on the ground. The minions, of course, began laughing at him, but what was once a funny scene turned quickly into a tragedy. Remember we said he was practicing with his sword? Well, when he fell, the sword flew up into the air and fell straight into his chest, killing him in the process. We don't know exactly why this scene was cut out, but many believe it had to do with how graphic the scene was.
Didn't my speech inspire anyone to rise up and prove themselves worthy?
Where is Scarlet Overkill? Many fans who watched The Rise of Gru wondered where Scarlet Overkill was, and some wanted her to be the leader of the Vicious Six group. But if you have watched the earlier Minions movie, you would definitely remember that the Scarlet Overkill storyline was set years before the Minions meet Gru. After the Minions defeated Scarlet, Gru came riding on his motorbike and stole the Queen's crown. It was then the Minions saw him and instantly followed him around, making him their boss. So even if the producers wanted to include Scarlet Overkill in the new Rise of Gru movie, it would have totally messed up the timeline. The only way it would have made sense was if Scarlet Overkill somehow survived what the Minions did to her. But I guess the producers were not willing to go down that path, so they opted for new breeds of supervillains.
I know it's really you, GRU. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
And that's all on today's video. If there's a video you would like to watch on our channel, let us know in the comments. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Click on the subscribe button so you are the first to know when other videos drop.
¿Qué pasó? La triba.
Oh, les teams.
Les teams.